Good morning, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 6 of the Staten Island Business Podcast, where we talk about everything related to business trends on Staten Island. I am your host, John Perez, and today we're going to talk about the top 20 open source alternatives to expensive software in your enterprise business. Going into 2020, Enterprise Technology Research did a survey, and they showed that executives and CIOs were expecting a 4% increase in global spending. Their new estimate, based on over 1,000 CIOs and other tech leaders in America, takes that down to 1% in March of 2020. This is especially true since the COVID crisis. CIOs now will be focused on reducing budgets for non-essential software and vendors and projects. In addition, CIOs may be looking at open source alternatives to these expensive software solutions that they have today. So today I'm going to go over the top 20 options you should consider as a CIO or anyone who's managing IT if you're looking to reduce your application and infrastructure costs. So let's get on with the list. We're going to start at number 20 and work our way back to number 1, with number 1 really being the most interesting tool that CIOs are looking at today in the COVID era. So let's start with DigitalOcean and AWS. This is not software, but definitely infrastructure as a service, which many organizations rely on. And that it can get expensive as you promote and deploy, I would say, applications in the cloud for your enterprise. So if you're doing DevOps or any kind of internal development, and you're setting up dev servers and you're using DigitalOcean or AWS or any one of these infrastructure as a service providers, you'll know that your bill at the end of the month for using those applications can be really expensive, especially if you're using expensive AWS servers with all these features like backup and S3 integration, etc. So a lot of opportunities here are to set up your own servers with your own self-hosted architecture. There's a couple of options out there. Proxmox, Proxmox, is definitely a open source infrastructure as a service application that really makes it easy for IT teams and development teams to actually go out there and deploy their own apps. There are also other options like PHP VirtualBox. So if you use VirtualBox to deploy servers, this is a PHP web version of PHP VirtualBox that allows your team to instantly deploy infrastructure. So check out Proxmox or PHP VirtualBox. I think these are great platforms for development. I'm not certain if these are production ready. I wouldn't recommend using these tools to replace a production platform. Okay, so next on the list, number 19 is Asana. Asana is definitely popular for task and project management in many organizations, and it's very easy to use. But as you go up the user stack of licenses, it gets more expensive. An open source alternative to try out is Lean Time. That's Lean, as in Nancy, time. So Google that and consider that. It really looks exactly like Asana, so check that out. All right, opportunity number 18, or software application number 18. If you have an ERP system or you're using NetSuite ERP, there are a lot of other options in the market, but one of the more popular ones that really bring all the ERP components together is an open source application called Odoo. That's Odoo. It is a platform that comes with inventory management, CRM, e-commerce, invoicing, a lot of the things that you need to do to manage a business all in one suite. Really strong at the ERP and finance and inventory side. So take a look at it. It is an open source solution, and you can host it on your own servers. Okay, software number 17, going back on this list, opportunity 17 to reduce costs is around password management. So usually companies use off-the-shelf applications to manage passwords, like 1Password. But you can replace that with two applications I would recommend. One is KeePass, that's KeePass, and Bitwarden. I actually personally use Bitwarden At my company, I think it's a great alternative to 1Password. Okay, opportunity number 16. Now, every organization uses GitHub. I do believe Microsoft made it GitHub for Teams temporarily available for most of the organizations that are using it today as a result of COVID. But if you're really looking for an alternative GitHub solution, you should try GOGS, GOGS. Again, that is essentially an open source alternative. If you don't want to pay for GitHub, give it a shot. Even though GitHub Teams is now free, it may no longer be free in the coming future. So check that out. GOGS, that is GOGS. Okay, number 15. Let's get into Google Analytics. A lot of enterprises are using Google Analytics to understand web track and behavior trends. And there's a really good alternative called Matomo. That's Matomo. And it's a great open source alternative to Google Analytics. So check it out, see if it's a good fit for your organization, and let us know what you think. Opportunity number 14, HubSpot. Almost every small business or medium sized business is using HubSpot, but now enterprises and large companies are really gaining traction on this application. It is a true marketing automation platform that really provides a great, slick interface to make marketing campaigns very effective and to send them out to to your prospects or leads or salespeople. The open source alternative to that is called ERXS. That's ERXES. A weird name for a HubSpot replacement, but it is open source marketing automation that looks and feels like HubSpot and really has a lot of the features that HubSpot ships with. So, really take a look at that and see if it is an open source replacement, especially if HubSpot is getting too expensive. They do price in by the number of contacts, and based on what you're doing with those contacts, it could really get expensive, especially for an enterprise business that's using it. Okay, number 13. Many companies need some kind of search technology. So if you're using Google Enterprise Search or Algolia Search, which is a pretty popular search enterprise application, you can use an open source alternative called Elasticsearch. Okay, so if you're paying for Google Enterprise Search or Algolia Search and you're considering a more cost-effective solution, Elasticsearch is pretty good, and we see this installed on a lot of open source applications. There's a lot of AWS environments pre-configured with Elasticsearch, so take a look at that. Opportunity number 12, Zapier. This is especially popular in small businesses, but we are starting to see a lot of enterprises, adapt Zapier when they need to implement very push and pull types of integrations across many of the cloud-based solutions that are out in the market. So this can also get expensive as you incorporate more Zaps. And the open source alternative to that is Huggin. That is spelled Hugginn. So that is an open source alternative to Zapier. Works a little different in terms of the interface. It's probably not as slick as Zapier, but what it does is really enables you to promote agents that work for you around the clock to do your integrations, and you can configure that very easily using Huggin. So take a look at that if you need to replace Zapier. Okay, opportunity number 11. Amazon S3 storage. Okay, so if you're using Amazon S3 for storage, take a look at Minio. That's MIN as in Nancy IO. That is an open source alternative to Amazon S3 storage. Of course, you have to supply the storage, but take a look at it. Okay. Opportunity number 10, Google Drive. Many of us are familiar with Google Drive. If you want to store documents in the cloud, easily share them with your coworkers and share them with your team. There is an open source alternative for that. There's actually a few, but one of the ones that I recommend is Nextcloud. You can set up a Nextcloud server, easily store documents, and share those documents across multiple devices, and easily share that with your team. So check out Nextcloud. That's the open source alternative to Google Drive. Next up is number 9, and that is Team Viewer. Okay, and Team Viewer allows you to actually remotely log into your team member's machine, or if you're an IT department managing employee issues, you can install TeamViewer on the employee's machine and you can remotely log into their computer. So that's especially useful in the remote world that we're in. We're all working from home. If someone is having trouble with an application, TeamViewer can be used to kind of remotely access and take control over that computer. So, what is the open source replacement? I've never heard of this, but it sounds like a good alternative. It's called Apache Guacamole, okay? That is the open source alternative, Apache Guacamole. So check that out. Opportunity number 8, Shopify. So many companies have invested in Shopify e-commerce websites, and it could get expensive as you do more in Shopify. If you used Wix or Squarespace to actually create your website, or e-commerce store, there are alternatives. And the main alternative is WordPress as your CMS, your content management system, and WooCommerce as your e-commerce engine. Both are based on open source software. They do have add-ons to extend the functionality, but I think that's a really great open source foundation if you have spent a lot on Shopify. Okay, opportunity number 7 is Slack. Everybody knows Slack. Everybody has heard about Slack, and a lot of enterprise companies are using Slack. There are open source alternatives, and two of them that really come to mind here is Rocket Chat and Mattermost. They both can be hosted in the cloud, and it really offers most of all the features that you actually have, in the cloud in Slack. And I've actually used both, and I am actually transitioning from Slack to Rocket Chat as a result. So check out those open source alternatives to Slack. Okay, next up is Trello, Trello. Many people use Trello for project management, assigning tasks in a nice Kanban view of your task. It really is a powerful user interface to actually organize what you need to do and what you need to assign to team members. There is a great open source alternative that looks very similar to it, and you don't have to pay extra for the extra users and the extra boards that you create on it. And that is Restia Board. That's Restya space board. Restia Board is a really good tool that I actually am using at my company. It has replaced Trello, and it has saved me a lot of money. What happens with Trello is as soon as you create, more than 10 boards, it forces you to pay for the licenses across your entire team. If you got a team of 10, maybe even 12 or 13 people, that really, really starts to get expensive for a small business. For an enterprise business, it's probably a little dent in the budget. But, definitely take a look at that open source alternative to Trello, and that is called Rest Your Board. Next up on the list at number 5 is Microsoft Project. So many of us are still relying on Microsoft Project to create very complex project plans across our IT projects. And there's really a good open source alternative, and it's called Project Libre. That's Project, and Libre is spelled Libre. Take a look at this application. It really looks and feels like Microsoft Project. It really allows you to build very linear project plans with dependencies and Gantt charts. It's not cloud-based. There are cloud-based alternatives, but this is really good for just managing a project plan. So check that out, Project Libre, and it's available for Mac and PC. And number 4, one of the most popular apps is Microsoft Office. Almost every enterprise solution or any enterprise company has Microsoft Office. And many times we think it's the only solution. And LibreOffice is a great open source alternative to Microsoft Office. So that's spelled Libre Office. And LibreOffice is a great suite of applications that includes the alternative to PowerPoint, Excel, Word. It has all the equivalent applications. You can even open and create Office compatible applications in LibreOffice. Take a look at it. It can save your company, hundreds of thousands of dollars if you're a big Microsoft Office shop with thousands of users. Okay. So number 3, Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Of course, Salesforce is a great brand, and it has great solutions for marketing. But one of the tools you should look at if marketing automation is really important to you, especially if it needs to be integrated with CRM, take a look at Mautic Marketing Automation. That's Mautic, spelled Mautic. There's a website called Mautic.org and Mautic.com. Mautic.org is the website you want to go to for the open source version. It does a really good job of setting up marketing automation campaigns, segmenting lists, building landing pages, all the things that you need to do in a marketing solution. So check that out. That is number 3. Now, number 2, related to that, is Salesforce. Everybody uses Salesforce. It's a great application. Salesforce.com, Enterprise, Professional Edition. But what happens if, it's starting to get too expensive at $125 per user per month, and your salespeople are using it, but they're just using it to manage their contacts, and they're just using it to track activity. In many cases, you could be overpaying for Salesforce, and in those cases, when you have a company that is just overpaying for licenses of Salesforce, you can certainly look at Suite CRM as the open source alternative to Salesforce. Suite CRM is open source, has been in the community for many years, has really robust, enterprise capability that Salesforce has. It doesn't look as nice, but it's very functional. So if you need workflow, if you need lead and opportunity management, if you need to use CRM for service as well as things like marketing, it does a pretty good job of giving you the foundational capabilities that Salesforce has. It doesn't look as nice at Salesforce, and the integrations are not as much, right? But the great thing about Suite CRM is you can hire a developer to build pretty much just about everything. So Suite CRM, please consider that if you are paying or overpaying on with Salesforce. Okay. So opportunity number 1, and this is the most popular application today since COVID has started to occur, and that is Zoom. Everybody is using Zoom. And there are 2 alternatives here. One is open source, and the other is proprietary and off the shelf. So Jitsi Meet, that's JITSI Meet, is a great open source alternative to Zoom. You can actually host up to 50 participants on Jitsi Meet today, and it's absolutely free and based on open source code. So really take a look at that, especially if you want to host your own open source servers and get a little more privacy. I think there's been a lot of Zoom issues with privacy in the last couple of weeks. The other alternative, just to mention, is Google Meet. Google Meet just gave their Google Meet Enterprise Edition, or their Google Meet software and video conferencing solution, for free to all users. So even if you're not an enterprise user or a business, you can actually use Google Meet for free and host up to, I believe, 100 participants on a call, using video conferencing. And that's a really good deal, and it's for free. So they're going to eat up some of Zoom's market share. All right, and that is my top 20 list of open source alternatives to off-the-shelf and very expensive software. I am your host, Sean Perez. Thank you for listening every single week. Stay tuned as we have more coming every single week thereafter. Thank you, and have a great week.